The Get On Living Safely campaign is sponsoring this podcast to remind you to keep your spending in the community. Supporting local businesses keeps food on the table for our friends and neighbors. Follow them on social media and learn more at getonlivingsafely.com. We chatted with Connie Minowa of the band Cloud Cult. We talk about the beginnings of the band and dig into the 10-year anniversary of the album Light Chasers. We also dip into the band's Patreon, where they've been busy adding videos, songs, live streams, and a slew of other creative content, in large part due to the changing business of music and the onslaught of COVID. You can find more conversations on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is Lacrosse Local.
My name is Connie Minowa. I'm with the band Cloud Cult. Music started for me at a very early age. One of the things that I remember most vividly is, those 8-track tapes that we had as kids. My parents had the Star Wars soundtrack, and they also had these gigantic speakers next to the 8-track player. And so I would turn the speakers in and I would sit between the two speakers and I would listen to the soundtrack. And I just thought that was an amazing thing. So you'd hear the sounds of the Millennium Falcon and things like that happening. And that would be one of the earliest memories. And then also too, my brother was really into music. So I was introduced to bands like Led Zeppelin and Jane's Addiction and Pink Floyd at a pretty young age. And some of those bands became really the soundtrack to my years going through junior high and high school. There was so much that just kind of opened up for me when I started to hear music like that. That was just so different than like the pop music that was out at the time, or like the polka music that was on the local radio station. So I would say Jane's Addiction probably was one of the most influential bands. Smashing Pumpkins was my first concert. And they were actually opening up for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. At the time, I actually was way more interested in seeing Smashing Pumpkins than the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but they just weren't, very big yet at that time. So,
for people that don't know, Cloud Cult has released 12 albums. You've done a film soundtrack and just various other projects over the past 20 years. What is the driver for the creativity for the band over the last couple decades?
Well, I would say Craig is definitely the driving force behind the band. He started Cloud Cult way back in the late 90s, mid 90s. And he really was using the music as a passion and an outlet and, medicine in a way too. He has always been very passionate about music, and he really didn't want to be on stage. He didn't really want to be a performer, but he needed to make music. There were enough people saying, okay, you gotta get out there. You gotta get this music out there. So he started to form a band, and he started to do shows locally and really trying to get his feet wet. And it was really hard for him at that time to, be comfortable on stage. It just wasn't his bag. So frankly, for a lot of us, it's not something that we're necessarily choosing to do, but we just have such a passion for the music and such a passion for what we've gone through that we really needed to keep moving with it. And over the years, it's become more about being medicine for people. We lost our son in 2002. For a good handful of years, we were basically in a deep state of grief. And the music was a way for Craig to express that pain and that suffering. And then as time passed and we went through counseling and we went through a lot of inner work, the music became more about how to heal and how to go through a really painful, earth-shattering, life-changing situation and try to grow from it. And so that's where I would say the last 11 years or so of music making and putting out the documentary and deciding to really just get full head on with the music was to try to be there for people and help people through, make the music something that could be cathartic, that could be for people who may not find their solace in going to church or into, finding religion that fits and helps to answer some of these deeper questions of how to manage in life when you're dealt with crazy hands, that we can try to hopefully give some people something to think about and make it something that can be a performance, not just a show, and but it's something that we can, not just a rock concert, but something that really can provide people with a feeling of coming away and having their hearts a little lighter.
The album Light Chasers is having its 10th anniversary this year. How does that album fit into the catalog of all these albums the past decades?
Wow. Well, so Light Chasers was the first album that we did where we became parents again. And so it was a journey for us. Like, a lot of the music was made pacing with our son at night, sitting and rocking in the rocking chair and writing lyrics, and realizing that, we had so much post-traumatic stress from losing our child and now raising another child, that album was a real, it was such a hard album to put out. But we really felt like, okay, here we've turned a corner. Things have changed. We're not in the grief mode like we had been in for so long, but now we're in the, new family mode, the new beginnings mode. That album really kind of became, chasing the light is sort of how we talk about that album, and really getting out of the darkness and moving forward into the light.
Listening to that album over the past few days, and seeing you live a number of times, you seem to pull a lot of these songs into your live shows. I'm not as familiar with this album as I have been on the other ones, but I know the songs. Why do these songs have so much staying power with the band?
Two of the songs on that album that are some of our quote-unquote greatest hits would be You Were Born and Energy. There's so much energy in us. And we played that in a lot of ways because it's something that the fans really ask for. If we don't play Energy, we'll hear about it.
Feel our hearts break as the engines fade. Still need to find it.
There's that one time that we didn't play it that, all of a sudden we get a bunch of messages. And so we put it in the set. We know that it's something that is just that kind of feel-good music. When people sing along, they feel like, yeah, there is a lot of energy in us, and let's move forward, and let's give each other grace, and let's try to make the best world we can. Yeah, I would say that those two are ones that if we don't play them, we'll hear about it. Other songs in there too are just, we try to mix up the set to have different songs from different albums, but some of those songs on that album were a little bit more driving and rocky, kind of a good foot stomping kind of dance and kind of music. And that's something that translates really well when you're live on stage and, the lights are on and we want to get moving. Those songs kind of help to bring the energy up.
So over the last 18 months, you guys have released 39 videos, 23 songs, 15 live streams, and basically just like a ton of content that you're putting on Patreon. Has this been infected by COVID-19? Have you kind of found some more creative output recently, or is it just normal?
The COVID pandemic has really made us realize that, we have to pivot as musicians and artists, and we have to diversify the way we get the music out there and the way we incorporate our fans into the process. And fortunately, Patreon has been such a great platform for us to be able to put music out, put content out that just kind of shows a snapshot of what we're doing, shows what we're working on, and also gives the fans and the viewers still an opportunity to see the band perform, even if it's not something that we can provide on stage.
People want to find out more. What's the best avenue to send them to?
You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram. You can also check us out. All the latest information is on Patreon, also on our Cloud Cult website.
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you would like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Locals. Subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We thank you for it.